Allende, take one. Steve Arnold from Science Channel's Meteorite Man here. Hey, I am excited about this one. I was doing some cleaning out, looking at some of the different meteorites I had, and I came across a baggie of little fragments of Allende. Now, Allende is the world's most researched meteorite. More papers have been written about Allende than any other meteorite. It fell February 8th, 1969, an incredible year. It was the year of the Apollo landings on the moon, and boy, there's a lot of stories. You can find anything you want on Allende out there. Just Google it and spend the next 20 years reading it. Let me give you a little backstory on this, something you may not know about it. Back in the 60s, the guys, the scientists at NASA thought, there ought to be some moon rock somewhere on the planet, and there should be some meteorites out there that got blasted off the moon. Look at the moon; it's full of craters, right? And so they spent some time doing some advertising, asking people if they thought they had a meteorite that they would check it out in hopes that they could find a lunar meteorite. Well, word got back. Actually, the head of the meteorite department at the Smithsonian was driving to work one morning and heard a public service announcement or something about, if you think you have a meteorite, send it to NASA. Well, he didn't take that very kindly and wrote a letter actually to Dr. Albert King, who was heading up this project down at NASA, and he was the first lunar receiving laboratory curator. So when the moon rocks came back, he was the one that was responsible for curating and taking care of those meteorites. And so NASA had to officially stop all their work. Well, they put out a lot of stuff, and so meteorites kept coming in, and so Dr. King went, well, I can privately, as a private individual, look into it, and so he did. Well, lo and behold, on February 8th, 1969, this huge fireball explodes over northern Mexico, south of where El Paso is. And Dr. King heard about it, got on a plane, flew to El Paso, got a car, drove down, picked up some pieces within just a couple days. And we're talking some really nice big pieces. A lot of this material was recovered. The Smithsonian and the Field Museum got quite a bit, but Dr. King got quite a bit too. He drove it back to NASA. They got it in the lunar laboratory, started slicing up. So it was like a dry run for the lunars, and they got to practice on the equipment and everything. And the meteorite was able to be sectioned and cut under the most sterile, pristine condition possible. And then Dr. King, the Meteoritical Society that year, that summer, was in Houston at NASA, and he was in charge of taking everybody out on a field trip, and everybody knew who he was. And he had this most important carbonaceous chondrite meteorite available, and he was willing to trade. And so he ended up trading pieces of that meteorite to all these institutions all over the world, got this huge collection together. He ended up passing away, and his widow hired me to broker that collection for him. And so this is just some little tiny remnants of some pieces of those meteorites that were sectioned, and pieces broke off, and a lot of nice big slices were made, and whole stones or half stones. But I've got a little bit, and so I'm not sure how many. I'll put the biggest ones up first. I'll sell those. They're in this little box with the little glass top on it, glued to the front of it. On the back's a COA, my signature. Now, this signature isn't actually one of mine. It's I printed it, so when they all copied with it. Some of my other listings, I actually do sign them, and I usually try to make that really clear, usually with an ink pen other than black, so it's real obvious that I sign each one individually. These, I'm just trying to get out there to price them cheap enough to let people get it, and so I've got a kind of a mass quantity of these, and might end up doing some selling to some gift shops or museum gift shops or some places where that'll be done. But in the meantime, I thought the bigger pieces, I'd give my customers on eBay a shot at this. Great story. Great meteorite. Oh, a little sign, there's the diamond in it. At the Smithsonian, they actually melted down 10 kilos, so almost 25 pounds of Allende in acid. And it took months and months, I think it was like 6 months per batch, to melt it in acid to get nothing but just nano diamonds, little tiny microscopic diamonds that they say came from a star 13 billion years ago. It burned out and everything was consumed except these tiny diamonds. They floated in space when the solar system came together 4.5 billion years ago. This meteorite captured some of that. So it's absolutely a phenomenal thing. This meteorite, if there was only a little bit of it available, would be a $200 or $300 gram meteorite. But because of supply and demand, there's relatively quite a bit of it available. It's going up in value, though. You probably should grab one while you can. And it's a great, great meteorite.